This is really cool for me. This is the first new frame that I bought since like back in my BMX days. So I ordered a 58cm Squid SoEZ from Jam's Distro about a month and a bit ago, and then it was lost in one of the postal carriers' possession, UPS or something. There's a few people that bring it between Australia and New Zealand through bike flights, but somebody lost it, so it's still somewhere up in the ether somewhere, no idea. But Jam's Distro had a 56, so all the 58s were gone, so we're next size down was a 56. Some people have said that they run pretty big, so I don't really have a big issue with downsizing anyway. So we've got a 56, the 56 is showing up safely. It only took about a week and a bit from Jam's Distro, which is really cool. Thanks heaps to Jam's Distro for all of this. Like, there was a lot of back and forth of emails and keeping me updated. I got here safely, so I'm happy as.
So a quick little rundown of the Squid SoEZ frame set. It's a 135 rear spacing track lacrosse chromalloy steel setup. It's got these cool monostay rear seat stays. And the fork that comes with the bike is pretty cool as well. It sort of looks like an old orange or something similar to that, like a segmented 3-piece fork. Pretty cool. So they do come ED coated, so you can't really run it raw. I guess you could sand it all off and then, rust it out if you wanted to. But we're going to be painting this up. So they recommend scuffing it with some, I think 400 grit or somewhere around there sandpaper. So just wet sand it a bit just to sort of dull the finish. That way the paint will stick a bit better. They recommend using spray bike. That's what we're going to be using today, but you can obviously use any other paint that you want. So you really just want to scuff the paint, scratch it all up. Try not to go too hard though, because you will wear through in some of the parts where it's a bit thinner. So to hang the bike up, I just use this 25.4 quill stem just to do it up a little bit, not too tightly, otherwise you're going to mess up that seat tube. Then wipe the frame down with some isopropyl alcohol, get it all ready for paint. So these are some of my sprayed up bike colours. This one is Suburb Pink, just kind of like a bubblegum pink, people call it. We'll also be using a few colours over the top in like a cling film speckled sort of marbled look. This gives quite a cool effect. You can just use any other style that you like. I was thinking of doing a splatter job, but I decided on the cling film style instead. So the purple on the bottom right there is Memphis purple, and that's one of the other main colours that we're going to be using on the bike. If you haven't used spray dot bike before, it's pretty easy to use. It's just completely different to a regular spray paint. So you spray it up really close, otherwise it goes powdery and then sort of dries before it hits the material that you're painting. So you want to spray it up quite close. It is really hard to make it run, but it is possible, so make sure you research it and spray it within the distances that they recommend. Good thing about this is you don't really need to do multiple coats. You can just do one coat. Sometimes going over with the second one if it's too thin in areas or like you've missed spots and stuff, but generally one coat and the colours are nice and thick or vibrant. So after I've got the colour down for the vinyl, I put the vinyl over the top and then later on peel those off, and then that'll be left there. So I'm going to be using pink and some blue splatter for the vinyl, like lettering. So we're going to put that down and then put the decals over the top of that. Wanted a bit of a splatter to the decals as well, so I'm going over with their fluoro blue. Then once that's dry, we're going to put the decal on and then go over the bike with the paint that we want, and then at the end we'll take the decal off. So this is basically just acting as like masking tape in the design that I want. So these decals, or vinyl masks come with the frame. But you can cut out masking tape or vinyl or something like that and sort of incorporate that into your design. So you can do, any kind of shape that you want, just cut that out. Or you can get a vinyl cutter, cry cut, and then, create all kinds of designs and stuff. Then once I've got all of them on, one on the fork as well, we're going to cover it back up with the color that I want. So this is just so the background is more uniform. You don't really have to do this, but because I want the marble effect, it would be uneven if I don't do this paint again. So yeah, we're going to use the Memphis, and to do that we're going to be using some cling film. In New Zealand I know this has Glad Wrap, but that's the brand of it, and I just use like this little bowl. So you just want to spray it a little bit in a can or cap or something. This is a bit too much, it ends up being too blotchy, so you want a little bit less paint on the Glad Wrap. By that you can just sort of tap it over, or you can tap it on the bowl that you're using. So like tap it on the outside of the bowl and then go to the material. It's best to use like a bit of a test frame or something if you're unfamiliar with it. So you can see me there, I tap it on the outside of the bowl and then go to the frame, just to get sort of the texture and the look that I want. And pretty much just go over that a bunch of times. You can use different colours and stuff and just build it up as you see fit, really. So I think that was their fluoro blue and possibly, was it chapel white? I could be wrong. The fluoro blue doesn't really look that fluoro, but this is the Memphis purple. Really like this purple. Looks pretty cool on the bike, especially with the pink. So you pretty much can go as much or as little with this as you like, but this is about how I like it. It's sort of hard to tell between which colour you put on first, and it has this really cool marble effect. Added a bit more pink and blue in places, and just trying to make sure that the fork will match up. So you sort of have to have the fork there with the frame as you're doing it. Then taking those vinyl lettering off that we put on at the start. So you can see here it reveals that pink with some of the blue splatter, which I think looks really cool. Sort of ties into the top coat nicely, but still stands out quite a bit, which is pretty much exactly what I wanted. So going over now with some gloss clear coat. Bunnings didn't have any of the matte stuff, so we're just going to make do. But because the paint is so textured, it's not going to show up glossy unless we sanded it down a bit. So if you did want the spray bike paint to be a bit glossy, you would have to scuff it down. I think I used 6 or 800 grit sandpaper on my pink and green Specialized to give it a bit of a gloss look. And last but not least, it's time to put the head tube badge on. So a bit of an old trick to making adhesive tape and adhesive stuff a little bit more sticky is to heat it up. So we're just going to take a flame to it for a little bit and then being careful we're not going to burn ourselves, just chucking it onto the head tube. I like head tube badges to be offset a little bit above the center. I think it just looks better, so that's what we're going to do here. Putting the seat post clamp on now. This is a purple one I got from Blue Lug. Thought it'd look really cool, especially with the charged spoon saddle that we've got on the bike. And then we're going to throw it in the stand and build up the rest of it. So this headset came all the way from the UK, from Monkey Shred. So thanks heaps for sending that over. So apparently New Zealand doesn't stock Chris King no thread sets in any colour apart from black now. So some of the newer ones, you know, the tapered headsets and stuff, we can get coloured. But the no thread sets just come to New Zealand black. I don't know if that's a thing across the board, but this is an old one Monkey Shred had, and I wanted it, so yeah, I think it sets the bike really well. Put some of the blue in the paint, so it ties in nicely. Just throwing that in with the DIY headset tool. This is basically just some threaded rod with a couple of nuts and some washers and stuff. It's never let me down, you just got to be careful putting it in. So this is the factory crown race that comes with the Chris King headset, and on the right is the tall base plate. So this is about a 5mm extra height. We're going to be using this to provide a little bit of extra tyre clearance to the down tube, because in the future I think it'd be cool to learn some bar spins. And on, I think it was the Fode Gang video, they said that 38s they don't think clear for bar spins without it. So I thought, that's a nice little trick. We're going to put it on just so we don't have any issues if we do manage to learn bar spins. Not something I'm going to be trying today, but yeah, something that I want to try at some point. These headset spacers, they also came from Blue Lug in Japan, and they match the headset really well. Stem is from Blue Lug, and the handlebar I got in New Zealand. It's a Hunter Smooth Move bar. They do come in a high rise and a low rise. This is the low rise version. Another spacer on top, and then we're going to mark that and cut it a bit later. These are the cranks that came on the Specialized Tricross Sugino 75s. I think I might strip these and paint them, polish them up silver at some point. You can sort of see the NGS logo there. Now the bottom brackets for Sugino 75 cranks are a bit strange. They're not really ISO taper, maybe not JIS, sort of somewhere in between, but apparently you can use either, so I'm just going to use the one that came on the bike, or with the cranks. The chainring, we're using this very fancy, bespoke chainring. Cost a whole buttload of money, but apparently they run a really long time, and they just look awesome. So this is like an oil slick colorway. This sort of came across from the BMX sort of scene, I think. So this is a Runwell Kuroko. This is a new chainring bolt tool. I wanted to try this out for a little bit. It's not that expensive, so I thought even if it's naff, it doesn't really matter too much. One thing I did notice is it doesn't really sit in all of the chainring nuts as well as some of the others. So the really special the really cheap, Park tool, regular chainring bolt tool, this one here, it seems to get in all of the nuts really nicely, and it holds them strong enough. So I've never really had any issues with this, but I thought, it'd be nice to have something a little bit better. So I think it'd be cool to keep the Kuroko in like my tool bag that I take with me, but I don't think it'll keep or hold a place in my workshop just because it's not as usable. It's a little bit harder to use as well, because I think compared to the Park Tool one, because the Park Tool one is flat, so you can have it just up against the chainring, but this one you have to have an Allen key and that protrudes out a bit, and it's just a little bit more awkward to use, but handy. It serves its purpose, but It's just not a replacement. So some of the nuts were stuck in the crank arm, so I had to give them like a little tap and that loosened them out. I had these stashed away specifically for this bike. These are some pretty cool looking pink bits. So we've got the self-removing, self-extracting crank cap thing. And then, yeah, some pink bolts as well. I only have 4 of these pink bolts, so I think we'll alternate with some other ones. Unfortunately, they were a bit too long though, so we had to cut them down. A little trick that I learned way back is that you can put the bolts in to the female side backwards and then trim them down a bit. Just use a hacksaw, or these alloy ones file down pretty easily, and then just sort of take the burr off and they'll thread back in nicely. So I did that, just took a few millimeters off each one and then they bolted in securely. No more wiggling. Should look really cool with that self-extracting cap there. And yeah, I found some purple chainring bolts. So I decided to do 1 either side of the arm and then 3 pink ones. Should look pretty cool. The self-extracting caps, these are pretty handy to have. Just means that you don't need a crank tool to remove the arm. So it's basically just a bolt, a washer, and then the cap. Just need a little bit of grease to make sure that the bolt doesn't push the cap out as you undo it. These are a feature on the Shimano 600 Arabesque cranks and a couple of other cranks. It's just a nice thing to have, so you can just undo that bolt and that'll pull the arm off. I just use some long nose pliers to get it on, just make sure that you're not too loose on it. And then making sure that the bolt still turns freely, doesn't create any binding or anything. So I tidied up that bottom bracket quickly. It had a little bit of surface rust on it, but it feels nice and smooth. So throwing some grease in the threads and everything to make sure it's not going to get stuck in there. It is ED coated though, so it shouldn't really rust, but you know how steel goes. So I think this is about 115 millimeter bottom bracket. I could be wrong. They recommend 120 for this frame with these cranks. So in hindsight, I should have known that it wasn't going to work out. But we threw it in. I thought because you can offset it a little bit, we might be able to get it to work. But we chucked it in and then put the crank arms on, and they just nicked the chainstay a little bit. So I thought, we'll just throw in the 120 instead, and that'll solve it. The bottom bracket with the 120mm axle also had wider shells as well, so they allowed for use of a lockring on one side, which is pretty handy, so like the old style ones, and that gave enough clearance for the crank arms. The wheels we're going to be using on the bike are Grand Comp, really nice gold ones. I got these off Zane, so thanks heaps Zane. Definitely going to be put to good use on this bike. That's them with the Gravel King on the front. So the rear, as I mentioned, it's a 135 rear spacing, which Surly do a hub, and I think there's like a White Industries hub or Paul hub and a couple others, but we're going to be building up something custom. So this is a Fisher, New Zealand built, pretty cool old hub. It's got a carbon center piece and then alloy outers. Has a really cool look to it in the sun especially. So this one was made it's in a dude's shed, Dave Fisher. There's not much info out there, but this is a 130 rear spacing hub. So it's track one side and freewheel the other side. So like a flip-flop hub. And bolt-on as well, so I can set it up fixed. Really nice sealed bearings in really good condition. I got it for cheap. Just going to give it a bit of a tidy up and then lace it up to the other grain comp rim. So yeah, some auto sole just to polish up the insides of it here. It's just going to make it easier to polish now while it's all apart rather than trying to polish it once the wheels are built up. Polished up really nicely. I mean, it's going to get filthy, but you know, it's nice to do this now. Makes cleaning it up a bit easier once it's all together later. Beautiful looking hub. Unfortunately, the sticker is going to be backwards because you can see the track side is on the left. So yeah, oh well. Just throwing some grease in the nipples now. I don't go through all the details of wheel building. There's so much info out there and tutorials and stuff. So I'm just going to skip through it. It's definitely a skill that's worth knowing. It took me a few tries and I'm still not proficient at it, but I'm confident enough now just to tackle it. Like if I want a custom wheel build done, I'll go through and do it. So I don't have any special tools or anything. This is just a screwdriver that's sort of been shaped to fit spoke nipples. This is I use a cut down spoke as like a, what do you call it? Like a, not a nipple driver, but something to poke the nipple through double wall rims and stuff to hold it there. It's a really nice activity to do outside, so I try and do it, especially on sunny days. I try and do it outside. Gives you like a nice view and stuff. It's quite relaxing. Some of the wheel combinations and the custom stuff that you can create just by being able to custom build up wheels is just so handy to have, I reckon. Every now and then I sort of mess that up. Sort of changing from the left, or you know, from one side to the other. Sometimes I have to take out a couple of spokes and then go back, but it always ends up really great. Yeah, nice, strong, reliable wheel builds. So these ones are built up with double butted spokes. I normally just build up with Champion if it's just going to be like a commuter wheel or something like that. But yeah, these ones are double butted. So moving on to trimming the steer tube down now. I use a pipe cutter. I've used this for a year or two now. You're not really supposed to use a pipe cutter on steel steer tubes, but I don't cut too many things down with it, so I haven't really had any issues with it. It's still cutting just fine. But yeah, if you're going to be using or cutting a lot of steer tubes down, then just use a hacksaw with like a cutting guide or something. It's really satisfying when it gets to that last click. Sort of it starts cracking around. So you do have to file up the edges and stuff just to get rid of any burrs. With the pipe cutter, it sort of flares out the outside diameter as well, so you have to file that down a little bit. But it's a nice even cut. I've seen so many stereo tubes that are cut wonky. But yeah, the pipe cutter cuts it nice and even. So this is a Stana installation tool. It's just a cheap one, but it works out really well. Just puts it in nice and even. You don't have to worry about trying to line it up with like sockets and stuff. This was a pretty cheap tool too. So Zane had the really good idea. Thanks heaps, Zane. Zane's got some really cool ideas. Of painting the crown race just so it blends in a bit more. So it's not this awful looking steel piece underneath the headset. So it looks a lot better now. So it's installing the fork back in. putting the handlebar back on. I had two top caps, so one that came with the headset, and I also had a purple one. I thought it'd be cool to put the purple one on. I can always alternate between the two. I'm happy with my choice though. The purple looks cool on it. I really like these little blue lug tags that they put on their parts and stuff. Yeah, a bit of a blue lug fanboy, but yeah, some really cool parts from there. So if you haven't been on Blue Lug's site, check them out. They do use DHL shipping, which can be pretty expensive, but unless you live in the United States, you're probably used to paying quite a bit for shipping anyway. Throwing the front wheel on now. I don't know what the max clearance is in the front. It can fit quite a big tyre. Yeah. Nice grain comp steel bearing hubs. Only thing is they don't make these tyres anymore. So when I eventually wear these out, I'm going to put on a different colour Gravel King. Another part that came from Blue Lug is these shark pedals. Quite a nice wide platform pedal. These are the plastic ones, but they do come in alloy and coloured and stuff as well. So just throwing them on. The straps that I'm going to be using on the bike, I was hoping that I would fit these Cheesy Supply straps on. These really cool blue ones to match the bike and stuff. Really nice quality. Cheesy Supply. Nice and thick straps as well. But I tried fitting these through the shark pedal, and the little hole in the side of the pedal is too thin. So I tried it both ways just to make sure I wasn't crazy. But it turns out, yeah, they're just not going to fit. So I've got these fair weather straps, which are a bit thinner. I've had these for a little while and they work great, but I just wanted something, new and a bit more colourful to suit the bike. So just use these straps for now. I thought I might be able to use the receiver part of the Fairweather strap together with the Cheesy Supply ones, but the Velcro is sort of reversed, so they just won't stick to each other. So just throwing this on for now. The Cheesy Supply one would certainly suit it a bit better. Spoiler alert, I do put this on before the first ride, so because I've had these tyres sitting around for over a year now, I don't know how long I've had these for, but they've been sitting around for a while and they've faded quite a bit. Just in this one patch on the rear tyre. Not really a big deal, but stuff just looks funny. It's faded to more of a salmon pink. Throwing the rear tyre on, and then we're going to put the rear cog on. So the gearing for this bike, it's a 47 tooth chainring up front, and we're going to be using a 20 tooth cog in the rear. It's pretty low, but it's not incredibly low. I know the track lacrosse guys, they run lower gearing than this as well, but I'm going to be wanting to use this on commuting and stuff, so I wanted something that's a bit of a middle ground, something that I can ride off-road, but it's not going to annoy me too much by running it on-road. So just making sure there's plenty of grease on the threads, and then screwing that on, just leaving it snug for now, and then when the wheel is in the bike, we're going to put the chain on and then pedal it uphill to sort of secure the cog a bit more. The lock ring, we're just going to leave it a little bit loose until that cog is secure. The frame has built-in chain tensioners as well. We're going to be putting these in and securing up the rear wheel with them. So just putting some grease in the hole and then threading those in. I was thinking, because I didn't actually put anything in to mask this hole off, I thought I would have to chase them out, get the paint out. So you can see there the rear end has a decent amount of flex that I can just do by hand. So the rear hub is a 130 spaced rear hub. and the frame is 135, but because it's steel, it's safe enough just to flex it down a little bit. You can do that by hand really easily, so I don't need to cold set or anything. If it didn't want to flex, I would have to use like a plank of wood and stuff and sort of bend in the rear triangle a bit. I do quite like Izumi chains. I had this one, I think I bought it on Trade Me. It's got like the NJS master link on it, which is like a flat head screw link. But I bought this jet black one off Blue Lug. They're pretty reasonably priced, a lot cheaper than the NJS ones, and kind of don't really need it. Yeah, really nice quality. Really cool master link as well, with the gold. Making sure you put this on the right way. So the clip can go on wrong way and then it can clip off. And then just, yeah, you'll die. You won't. It's not a guarantee that you'll die, but if you're not going to run brakes, the chain is sort of your lifeline, really. So you want to make sure that your chain is up to snuff. So it's a 2mm Allen key to get these chain tensioners wound in. So just doing them up enough. You can see the chain here moving a bit. We want that to have a bit of play in there. We don't want it to be super tight. The first few rides, the chain will sort of look to loosen off a little bit as well. So we want about an inch or 2.5 centimeters or so of vertical play. So push it down, put your finger there, and then push it back up. One of the last things is the bottle cages. So something I really like about this bike is that it has 2 bottle cage mounts. A lot of like track frames and stuff, they don't really have bottle cage mounts, but I really like to have a bottle with me. I normally take like a liter of water. Then second to last, or the last thing, is tightening up the rear cog. So I just pedal it uphill a bit, and that secures the rear cog about as far as it can go. So you just really want to do it up some nice strong hills, but without backpedaling. So you just want to pedal up some hills, making sure not to backpedal at all. Then tighten up the lock ring. It's best to do this with the chain on the bike. That sort of helps the cog stay in place. But this is a dinky little lock ring that wasn't wide enough, so I had to take the chain off. But the cog didn't move at all, so not really an issue there. And then the bike's all together.
Hey birds. Oh, they're getting real defensive. How's that? I mean no harm. I knew this thing would be nimble and stuff, but no tukika. Flying away. But I didn't know, like, it's so sick. Like, what is it? The track's good. The size drill is really good for me. The 58 would have been okay too. I just would have had to have a shorter stem. I think this is a good length stem for this size for me. Oh, they're closed off that? No? I haven't closed it off. Go a little. Oh, the gearing is actually pretty good through here. Ooh. I mean, the bars are a bit wide. Making me a little nervous. Yeah, my head. I feel way too confident considering I don't really ride brakeless fixed gear. I don't know what that was. How do you wheelie these things? Like, I get the getting it up part, but once it comes back around to like the other rotation, oh. That was the tiniest, babiest little wheelie, but it was 1-2. I'm just gonna spend the rest of the time just trying to practice like a couple little baby wheelies. Oh my god! 2.5, sort of. Yes! Oh, it feels so cool. I tried them on the Chinelli Gazzetta one time and I just didn't have the confidence. Like, it was on a wet day and like it was on concrete. I don't know why, but on gravel it feels a bit safer. Like, I guess it's a little bit softer than falling on concrete. So I wasn't even recording, but I remembered that Wavy asked about the toe overlap, and I didn't actually notice until I started trying it, but it actually clears. It just gives like the tiniest little buzz, and that's sort of if I'm trying to make it hit.
This thing is cool as track lacrosse. This thing is so cool. I can see why so many people are into track lacrosse. It's not really that big in New Zealand. There's really only like a couple of little groups that do it, but I can see why there's like, like congregations of it worldwide. Fuck, so cool. This bike is so cool. I'm so happy with the paint job, but like the rest of the parts, I think I might change out the crank if I find a silver one, but it actually looks pretty good. I'll just keep an eye out for a silver one. Yeah. I see why people do it. It's pretty dangerous for me, you know, in my opinion, on the roads. But with this gearing, I think we're going to be going so slow that it's not going to be much of an issue. I just have to be a bit more cautious and stuff. I think we are going to put a front brake on it. You can rock them. Like, it does have a front brake hole. You just need long reach brakes. I've got a dual pivot one. I think it's like a Tektro or something, or something similar. We've got one that can fit, and I've got an Odyssey monolever to put on it, and then if I want to, I can take that on and off. It's just 2 bolts, because the Odyssey monolever has a hinged clamp on it, so we can just pop that on and undo the bolt, vice versa for the brake, and we've got a front brake on it. Yeah. Cruising along. So that's all of the riding that I recorded for the video. I have done a few road rides and stuff, sort of some commutes in between West Auckland and town, and I really liked riding it on the road as well. It's a really nice handling bike. It's not too twitchy. I didn't really know how it was going to handle going into it. I have heard really good reviews, and I know it's a really popular bike and stuff, but being sort of set up for track lacrosse, I never knew how twitchy it was going to feel. But it feels really nice. I can no-hands it and stuff. The gearing works out really well. Something I didn't know, because I'm not too familiar with riding brakeless fixed gear, I didn't know how it was going to go, but about the only times where I really sort of felt that I was lacking a front brake was coming to a complete stop. Like the last couple little pedal strokes is, I think, when I grab the front brake, just because I'm in my head, I'm like, I'm stopped, I can just grab the brake. And going down like long, slow inclines, it's just nice to have that front brake to sort of drag brake a bit. So as I mentioned in the past video, we've got quite a few cool projects coming up. This white Nishiki Alien will be coming up next. But then we've got, I don't know, probably close to a dozen other bikes. The Specialized Rock Combo is one that I'm really looking forward to. But we've also got a State Clunker, which is pretty rare to find in New Zealand. I know they're really popular in the States and stuff, and quite a nice cheap entry level sort of clunker, 27.5 wheels and stuff. Quite a cool setup from out of the box really. 118 headset and stuff. Heaps of tyre clearance. Comes with 2.3 inch tyres. I've also picked up a Cannondale Cyclocross, which is a factory 700C, cyclocross bike. It doesn't have too much tyre clearance in the back. We should be able to fit some 35s and then a 40C up front. Yeah, it's all factory, pretty tidy bike. I'm going to be going through that at some point too. We've also got a GT steel disc converted old Avalanche, which I'm going to be building up into a commuter too. I'm so happy with it. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.